What's up, guys? Welcome back to RetroActive.
Episode 2.
Yes, we made it to the second week.
All right. Well, as you know, I am Will. Well, I hope you know it. I'm Will.
And I'm Joey. We're here to bring you all the things. Okay, so maybe we should clarify this first so that people actually understand.
Oh, yes. We should clarify.
Like, yeah, we had the whole video game theme podcast, but, you know, we don't just like video games. We are Renaissance men of this era, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, we like a little bit of everything.
We love everything as long as it fits within our narrow window of what is good.
It's a pretty big window for being pretty narrow. It's tall, very tall. But yeah, I mean, we want to talk about more than just video games on this podcast. Like, I mean, we both studied film and you know, I studied literature as well. So I'm very much into books. We're into TV shows, and you know, this you could probably tell based on the title of the podcast, and also based on the really nifty like logo that Joey here made.
Yeah, thank you.
It's super like retro looking, and yeah, we're very much into nostalgia, and
yeah, we like to bring the listeners everything that we can in that respect.
Yeah, like to bring you back in time with us, time traveling, if you will,
such as to last week.
Last
week after we finished this podcast and Will injured himself on my floor.
Oh my God, yes. So bad. So the story of that is so Joey's apartment has these lovely wooden floors. The unfortunate part about them is that they are untreated
for probably 50 years or so.
Yeah, so
there's just jagged ends sticking out everywhere.
Yeah, so I tend to shuffle my feet around sometimes, and I did not have shoes on. So when I shuffled out of the closet after we finished the last episode, I got a very, very big splinter that dug into the meat of my foot.
God, it was like about half an inch long.
Yeah,
right?
That thing was huge, man. I every time I come to your apartment now, I have a little bit of PTSD. Like, I will not walk on this floor without slippers on now.
Good, you have them on.
I'm wearing, like, Chia slippers right now, so
good choice.
There's that. Also, we would like to wish everybody out there a happy Lunar New Year. Oh. So going back to the future, or the present, I guess it is, we want to wish everybody a happy Lunar New Year, because between Joey and I, we make up, what is it, three-fourths of a Chinese person? So,
3/4 of a Chinese person?
Three-quarters of a Chinese person, you know? Like, just missing a limb or something.
Oh, okay. Well, that is true.
Yeah. Oh, yes, and one more interruption there.
What is it?
I want to make our first ever shout-out.
To me?
No, to our friend Johnny, whose birthday it was this past week. So, yeah, happy birthday, Johnny.
Congratulations on aging.
Yeah, you're getting old now, man. He's older than me. And you.
And, yeah.
Well, he's always been older than you, really, but and me.
When people say that, you know, when you're my age, you'll do this and this, well, obviously you're never going to be their age because they'll always be older than you.
Exactly. It's kind of funny how that works out.
All right, well, let's get into the reason why we're here today, what brings us together this week. And one of the things that I really want to talk about is what they announced, you know, I think it was maybe last Sunday or something.
Yeah?
Was the Nicktoons movie.
Nicktoons movie?
Yes. So basically there were talks about this all the way back in like October, November, where they wanted to bring, you know, a bunch of the Nicktoons together in a live action hybrid movie, kind of akin to Roger Rabbit.
Oh, you mean so with like the real life actors and the real life settings, but you have the animated cartoons moving around.
And so
in that
originally,
like
what was rumored at the time was it was Rugrats, All Real Monsters.
Oh yeah, All Real Monsters.
What else was there? Cat Dog, and I think the Angry Beavers.
Yes,
those were the ones that were on the table first. And so there was talks about it back then, and then it didn't really get any traction up until last week when they actually decided on the director.
Oh, who'd they get to direct it?
And so far, the person that is attached is Jared Hess, who you may know of Napoleon Dynamite.
Yeah, fame. Napoleon Dynamite.
So, I mean, that movie is, you know, it's kind of polarizing. Some people really enjoy the humor. Others think it's the most boring thing ever.
Yeah.
But he's at the helm so far for this movie, and, you know, it'll be interesting to see how it moves forward from here.
I know. That's like, I'm very I'm very torn on how to think about that because, I mean, before we even go forward with that, it should be pretty well known. Like, I mean, it's well known to our friends, but we should set this record straight. Me and Joey, we love like 90s Nickelodeon cartoons.
Totally.
Yeah. Like, I think between the two of us, we like pretty much almost all of them, you know, to a degree. But growing up.
Okay, I will fight you with As Told by Ginger because that show is terrible.
Oh, well, you know, that's later. That's the later years, you know, like basically, I don't know. I
between
would say
1991 and maybe 1997.
Yeah, like up around the time when like SpongeBob and Avatar and those shows were coming around.
That's when I kind of started to lose interest. But before that, that's my jam.
Oh yeah, I mean, come on, like shows like Doug, Rugrats, Hey Arnold. That was my favorite. Rocko's Modern Life. Actually, no, that was my favorite. Rocko's Modern Life, for sure. Ren and Stimpy. It's kind of weird to think about it now in a way that like, wow, they're making a movie based on those franchises like now.
Now obviously it's because if you haven't noticed, there's this huge 90s resurgence, not only for cartoons,
right,
but also for just everything, you know, style, music. There's a lot of things that are coming back, and it can be attributed to the fact that people who are our age are now, they have the money, they have, you know, somewhat power.
They're the ones that are in charge now, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're the ones working those jobs
and
now.
They're the ones that want to. I don't want to say they're the ones that want to bring this back, but they're the ones pushing for it.
Right. I mean, it makes a lot of sense because it's like, well, what are we most inspired by typically? Like when we get to this age, we're inspired by what we grew up with, you know, and that's a lot of the things. I feel like I think about that more now because we're closer to the age where we're closer to having our own kids than we are like being kids ourselves, I feel like. So it's one of those things. It's like, well, what do you show your kids? You know, what are the kinds of the things that you're going to show them? I mean, I look at Nickelodeon and the Disney Channel now, and I just think to myself, oh my God, I do not want like my kid watching this stuff. But I think
for things that are on now.
For things that are on now. And it, you know, it's like I wish that they still showed, you know, some of those old Nicktoons.
And well, the thing is they do. You know, they have, the great thing about it is that they have these individual channels or channel.
The one channel.
But it's made specifically for 90s cartoons and just 90s stuff in general.
Yeah.
And so that Nickelodeon, they recognize that those people that used to watch these shows, they were good. It's not like they were made, they were popular, and then they were forgotten.
Right. You don't see like a channel dedicated to like 80s cartoons or something like that, like G.I. Joe and Transformers. I mean, as good as a lot of those cartoons really were, like as memorable and as timeless as those were, you don't see channels dedicated to that. You don't see like, you know, I mean, there are probably like websites out there that may be like focused on that, but they're very much like a niche thing.
Yeah, like at least for me, mostly because I didn't grow up in that era, when I look back at the stuff that are from the 80s, it seems like they're more meant to laugh at now, because you can look back and, you know, see how terrible the animation is and the acting and all these things that people don't really, they don't look back on it fondly.
Right. It wouldn't really fly nowadays.
I mean, I'm sure there are some that I don't really know about, but for the most part, the ones that I've seen, they just seem kind of cheesy and just kind of throwaway-ish.
Yeah.
So when you're able to look back on it, you're like, oh, look at this stupid cartoon back here.
Exactly.
Like there was one I saw. I looked this up a couple days ago, and apparently Hulk Hogan, he had an 80s cartoon.
What?
It's called. Let me see what was the name of it?
Hulk Hogan in the 80s.
It's called Hulk Hogan's Rock and Wrestling.
Oh, dude,
so if you can guess what that's about,
that sounds amazing.
I think it's something about like him trying to do good and like inspire kids or something, because that's what he does, right? And then
of course.
Was it Roddy Piper?
Oh, rest in peace.
He's the head of like some rival wrestling gang, and they try to mess with him or something.
How have I not heard of this? I was super into WWE.
You can go into Daily Motion. They have a couple episodes online. I only made it through the intro, and that was about it.
You just heard like, "What you gonna do, brother?"
I think he sings the song. if I remember it correctly, or at least has like a couple lines in it.
Yes. Oh God, no. I mean, as much as I'm saying yes, this all sounds terrible.
Yeah,
you know?
you say yes because it sounds hilarious.
It sounds hilarious to laugh at.
Yeah.
You know, but I'm pretty sure that like it wasn't made to be like the butt of a joke the way we're making a joke out of it now.
No, it's only when you look back on it.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing with the 90s, and it seems to me that people are looking back on it and saying that yes, these are good, and that's why Nickelodeon is pushing for this.
The nice thing is, I look at some of those shows now, and I feel like I can appreciate them almost even more now as an adult than I could when I was a kid.
Right.
And the biggest example for this would be Rocko's Modern Life, which I mentioned before.
Yeah.
If you go back and you watch that now, it's funny because the episodes are set up so simply. Like,
usually it's just one thing that he does in his day.
Exactly, like taking out the trash, doing laundry, going grocery shopping, and that's like the whole
like getting
episode.
A credit card and going into debt and having people collect your stuff.
See, even that, it's like as a kid you don't understand.
You just think like, oh, it's a scary agency that like wants to take his things away, but you don't realize that he did this to himself.
Exactly,
he got into debt and now he has to pay for it. But it's fine.
You could look at it as like, well, it's a commentary on like addiction almost, about like, oh, like
God.
It's like, hey, I don't gotta pay for this.
That was
now.
Heifer's fault, okay?
Yeah, well,
he was the one
true.
who pushed it on him.
Heifer also gave up a stomach just to pay for stuff at the end of the episode.
But what a good friend.
I mean, going back to that, you can look at those episodes and it's like, all right, well, it's when you're a kid, yeah, it's like, it's funny. The animation is like overblown and out there, especially because they're just like, they're a bunch of like cartoon animals and everything in these situations. And it's funny, but when you look at it now as an adult, a lot of the dialogue has like so much adult humor in it. And it's like, it's amazing what Joe Murray was able to get away with that show. And
I know.
Some of which he couldn't, because there were a couple episodes that did get censored after they first aired. I remember in particular, there was like that episode where Rocko and Heifer, they go on a road trip.
Oh no.
Yeah. And there's
I
one
know
part
where you're going.
there's one part of the episode where they stop in at a hotel, and it's just, I forget the name of it.
It was a no-tell motel.
The no-tell motel, that was it. And so they're all like, oh yeah, we need a room for the night. And the innkeep, he's just he's like some Asian stereotype guy. And he's just like, oh, you want room for a whole night? Really? And it's like, okay. And you hear all these sounds and noises like in the background, and it's like, as a kid, I didn't get that at all. I don't understand what's going on. And then of course it does a zoom out of the hotel, and you just hear like Heifer like snoring, and then he makes this noise, and he's like referring to like his girlfriend or whatever, Sheila. And Rocco's all pissed off, and you don't understand why or what's going on. I mean, I'm sure people listening into this who have never seen the episode, they're like, what the fuck is going on? But I mean, the idea is they're in like one of those motel, like a love hotel.
Yeah.
Where, like, people just go there to like quote unquote rest,
have sex.
Yes. Well, we might as well just go all out.
Throw it out there.
Yeah. There's like, they just go in there to have sex and stuff. And that's why the innkeep is like, you want to stay all night?
Okay.
All right. Whatever, man.
But yeah, they, along with like Ren and Stimpy, was the one who kind of pioneered that adult humor.
Yeah.
Because at the time, Nickelodeon didn't have any cartoons. They were a new network, and I think it was Ren and Stimpy, Rugrats, Doug, and then what was the fourth one? As like the initial Nicktoons. Do you remember?
I feel like it was either Rocko or what was the Real Monsters, maybe? Because those are the ones that I think of. Like, those are the ones that I think of as the really early ones. Like, I don't know any other. I think those were the main ones. Angry Beavers came on later. Like Cat Dog, that was way later. That was kind of like, in the middle of the night. Yeah, middle to late 90s. Most of those ones came later. So I think it was, like either Real Monsters or Hey Arnold.
Oh yeah, but anyway, what I'm saying is that when Ren and Stimpy first came out, like they were super experimental in like, not only their animation, but like what they, like you said, what they could get away with on this children's network.
Yeah.
And if you sugarcoat like these weird, like gross things as being, with like this music. It's a very strange juxtaposition to have this on the child's programming.
Yeah, it really is.
Like Rocco seemed to kind of piggyback on that. It's not to say that they stole things from them, but they were able to look at Ren and Stimpy and see like, oh, they could do that. Maybe we could have something similar to that.
Yeah.
And you know, I like comparing the two shows because they both feature, you know, these talking animals that are adults, and they just live like adult lives. Like if you know Ren and Stimpy,
they have their own home.
Yeah,
they have jobs.
The thing is, they have they do something different every episode. So sometimes they're you know working at a fire station. Sometimes they're working as salesmen. Sometimes they're living in a coffin. And like there's no explanation how they get into or out of these situations. Yeah. But it's fun seeing them as like fully grown people, like, and that is your basis for the cartoon. Like that is your main character.
Yeah. It's also funny because every time you mention the idea that like these are adults, I just think back to that episode when they pretend to be babies.
Who do?
Ren and Stimpy. There's an episode where they like, you know, they switch.
I don't remember that.
With these two babies, and it's like they totally trick the parents into thinking that they are their children.
Okay, yeah, it's starting to come back to me a little bit.
Yeah, despite the fact that they're very obviously like a dog and a cat, or at the very least some kind of furry, non-fleshy colored
something.
Animal.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. I feel like the success of those older cartoons came from the writing. In the way that they made their characters feel older than they actually were. Like you say that, you know, adult humor is one of the things that like keeps you watching nowadays. And while I think that's true, a lot of it has to do with not just the jokes, but the way the characters act. Like Doug, for example, I still watch it today, and I notice that the things that he goes through and the things that he feels are very adult. But he's only supposed to be 11 years old.
Oh my God, really?
And like. I guess it's just the setting that they put him in. They put him in almost like a high school type.
Yeah.
They have lockers. They have different classes.
I was going to say, it's like, it always felt more like a high school show. So it's like to know that he's like, what is that, like elementary school age?
Yeah, he's 11.
Yeah, that's a little
11 years old. What were you doing at 11?
Yeah, certainly not that.
Like falling in love at all?
Yeah,
no?
exactly.
Nobody does that at 11 years old.
I mean, you know, I think I had like an inkling of that kind of
Nobody
stuff,
has as much anxiety as he does at 11 years old.
Or even that much awareness of like life in general, you know. And even the idea of keeping a journal, like a detailed journal like that, that's like, I didn't do that until I was probably in high school.
You still did that?
Well, you know, live journal. We all got into it at the time.
No, don't mention that.
Don't go digging.
We're not going down that alley.
Maybe that's for another time, another place, another podcast. Well, probably not.
But just what I'm saying is that I feel like the older cartoons, they had especially like genuine moments of maturity.
Yeah, definitely. And they were definitely also too. They were very relatable moments. You know, they were broad enough and sort of general enough that they were unique to the show and unique to the characters, and you saw how the characters dealt with things in their own way.
Yeah.
But you also could very much, you know, feel. You can also very much relate to what they were feeling and relate to what they're doing in those situations. I think for me, more than Doug and like the suburban small town sort of feel and setting to it.
Yeah.
I felt that way about Hey Arnold.
Oh, yeah, he's in big city.
Yeah,
you look at us.
Exactly. You look at Hey Arnold, and it's pretty much like, they don't really say it, but it's pretty much set in like New York, in like a big urban environment. You know, and he goes to like a public school, PS 118. You know, he lives in a boarding house like with a bunch of other people, like a big apartment.
Like he has like a very non-traditional family.
Exactly. And growing up, like when I was a kid, I looked at that show and was like, that is exactly like how my life kind of is. I don't have a really sweet like rooftop like bedroom like he does, but I lived in this apartment building as like one of the very few kids like in the entire building, and you know, taking the bus and getting mugged and like going through the dangerous ass city streets, you know, and stuff. I could definitely relate to a lot of those episodes, and even looking back on it now, it's like I can watch those episodes and really, you know, and go like, yup, it's still kind of like that here in San Francisco. It's like that here in the big city. I mean, as much as it's changed in like the last 5 or 10 years, it's still very much like, relates to the things that we do today. And I can appreciate that. It gives it a very timeless quality.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of those shows have that timeless quality to them that, it's just, you can watch it 20 years later and it still feels very relevant.
Yeah.
Because of that.
Because they don't, I feel like what makes a lot of them unique is that they're encapsulated in their own little worlds, and they don't need anything outside of it to be good. Like with Doug especially, it's all self-contained, and it all deals with things that are general enough for anyone to relate to.
Yeah.
And that I feel like that's what makes it quite as timeless as Hey Arnold is.
And the fact that even the stories themselves and the episodes themselves are self-contained. It's not one big like branching story that you have to follow from week to week like a lot of television today is.
Yeah, a lot of people love story-based things, and it gets the viewership. It makes you really connected with these characters in that you want to see where they end up.
Right.
But I mean, it's also fun to just follow along with these people as they go about just everyday life and seeing them in the same situations that you would be seen in.
Exactly.
Okay, but going back to the Nicktoons movie and how it's going to be received.
See, it's hard because I look at for me personally, looking at Hollywood's new little obsession with like, kind of like that era now, and going back and revisiting a lot of these older franchises and like either rebooting them or giving them sequels that nobody really asked for. Yeah,
the story for the first one was complete, but they dug something up and shoveled it out onto us.
I mean, we can kind of like look at one of the more recent examples, like Jurassic World, which came out last year. I will admit, like, okay.
You were hyped for it,
I was hyped for it because
you got sucked in.
Jurassic Park, I will say this, is my favorite movie of all time.
Of all time?
Of all time. As a kid in 1993, I saw that movie in theaters 15 times, and that's not an exaggeration.
Do you have all the ticket stubs?
I wish I did. I really wish I did.
Rain confetti.
Because I do this thing where I put ticket stubs in my DVD cases to show, like, just to put them in there. And, like, Jurassic Park would have been full of ticket stubs.
You would have put it in your VHS.
I still have the VHS.
You shoved them in there along with the tape.
Yep. Both my parents bought me the VHS like as soon as it came out. So one of them had to return it. I think it was my dad.
Are you sure you didn't want to keep one on the side? I did. Once the other one like was spent and all jacked up.
Like once the tape was just so worn that you couldn't watch it anymore. Oh, VHS tapes. I remember those. But yeah, I mean, going back to Jurassic Park, I mean, that's my favorite movie of all time. And I was looking at Jurassic World, I felt the same way. I was sitting there thinking to myself, why are they making another sequel? Because the two sequels that came after the original Jurassic Park, The Lost World and Jurassic Park 3, they were not that good.
I think they were beyond not that good, right?
I mean,
I didn't watch either of them.
To be fair, The Lost World wasn't terrible, but it deviated so much from the Michael Crichton's original novel that it just was like, you could tell it was made as a popcorn movie. It wasn't meant to like
they realized that people love these dinosaurs and they just they built that up more.
Exactly. They didn't want to. They would rather like make a movie that sold based on like the visuals and everything rather than stick close to the original source material and make it slightly weird for audiences.
Well, how close was Jurassic Park to the original?
It was fairly close.
Like what things were different? Exactly?
I mean, mostly just like. There was a lot more downtime, I think, in the novels where, especially with the raptor scenes, they spent a lot of time trapped in the inside of the buildings and the labs, more than just running around and trying to escape from them. It was mostly like they were trapped, and there were a lot more characters, so there would have been way more people on that island than you see.
Was it like a fully functioning park at the time?
It was. I mean, for the most part, it's like it was a fully functioning park, and. Yeah, there were way more people, way more dinosaurs. There was just way more that they would have had to like do and put on screen. But it's like I feel like because of how long, if you go back and look at that movie, that's pretty long already.
It's like it's a little over 2 hours.
Yeah,
something like that.
Like for most audiences, like I feel like that would be kind of stretching it nowadays.
Yeah, especially I feel like people are getting more and more tolerant of longer movies because I mean, I just watched The Hateful Eight twice. And that's 6 hours worth of movie right there.
Yeah, no, really.
And then The Revenant, which people are going out to see in droves because it's nominated for Best Picture. That's like 2.5 hours.
Leo DiCaprio.
Or I think it's like 2:45 or something like
yeah,
that. But
yeah, they're pretty long.
People are enjoying longer movies more and more, I think.
Which
like
is good.
Even animated movies, a lot of them are they're getting close to 2 hours now.
Good.
And good?
Good. No, I mean, I like that. I
wouldn't say it's necessarily good. It just,
if there's more of a story to tell, and if
a
it
lot
makes
of times
it stronger,
there isn't.
Yeah,
that's the problem. And older Disney movies, they could tell a complete story with characters that were great, and it gets their point across in under 90 minutes.
True. I mean, I'm always one of those people. It's like, I would like if there's more story to tell, and if you could expand on things more that where it's needed, then I'm all for it. Give me more.
But that's not always the case. That's the unfortunate thing.
It is.
And it's the unfortunate thing because it also applies to not only runtime, but just movies in general. Like people trying to bring back all these, but not giving. Let me see. How do I say this?
How do you say this?
I'm not quite sure, but it has to do with movies that are being brought back, or franchises that are being brought back, revived from decades ago, and being brought back to the present day, and not being treated with as much care as you would expect it to be. Yeah.
And there's definitely a lot of examples of that. I mean, honestly, Jurassic World, I think they did an okay job of it.
They really tried.
They tried to pay homage to the original.
They tried so hard that they pretty much remade Jurassic Park.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like the exact same story, but it's like they acknowledged that the first one did exist already.
They not only acknowledged it, they shoved it down our throats.
Exactly.
Like, here's
the original Jeep. Here's the original visitor center.
Here's the 2 kids that get lost. That get attacked by a T-Rex.
It's like, wait a minute, this is the same story.
It pretty much is, and the same thing could be said for Star Wars.
I was just gonna say that.
A lot of people. I mean, it's pretty obvious.
Hopefully this is not a spoiler for anybody. If it is, then you should be ashamed of yourselves that you have not gone to see it already.
It's not a spoiler. It's the fact that the storyline is just very, very similar.
Oh, dude, it is
not
like,
only very similar, but it takes all the beats from A New Hope, and
it is basically A New Hope.
It's basically the same Hope. It's not a new one.
It's pretty much the same, honestly. It's like, even like, actually, I went to see that movie with my parents. And because I treated them to it as a Christmas gift, and my dad was like, "That was the exact same movie.
Can we return this gift, please?"
Yeah. Well, it's funny because we had to go see it twice anyway, because during the last few scenes of the movies in the first showing, somebody pulled the fire alarm in the theater.
Oh God!
And,
I heard about
God, that was
those.
So awful. If you're one of those people that goes out and does that, fuck you. I'm done with that. That's okay.
Okay, I don't want to speak over you. You seem a little volatile right now.
Oh, it's fine. But getting back on to talking about like Hollywood doing sequels and bringing back these franchises, I could see the positive and the negative aspects of both of doing that. Mm-hmm. I mean, on the one hand, it's like, you know what, it is kind of cool for them to reintroduce these like franchises that for example, like we loved growing up as kids, and showing them now to like audiences who simply weren't around at that time. You know, I have like a lot of coworkers who are as young as like 19 or 20, 21 who have no idea, who were not even born when like these when Jurassic Park came out.
Oh God!
When Independence Day came out. Independence Day is getting a sequel after 20 years. Literally,
nobody
20
asked
years.
for that either.
No, but
we're getting it.
When I saw that trailer, man, Jeff Goldblum stepping in there, Bill Pullman with the beard and everything. You know what? I'm gonna go see that movie. I will see that movie.
Oh man,
I know it's probably gonna be bad. I don't care.
You are part of the problem here.
No, but yeah, maybe. That's also the thing is that would be like the negative side of it though. It's like the negative side would be like, if they don't do this right, I mean, this could possibly like alienate both of those audiences. It could, you do it, if you change it so much that the people who loved the originals don't like it, you're alienating those people. And if you make it so out there and you try to stick close enough to the source material that younger people aren't going to know what it is you're referencing, they're not going to like it. So you have these two audiences in a way that you're trying to please with both of them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very, I feel when you're bringing back like pre-existing franchises and older or making sequels to older ones, it's a very delicate balancing act. You know, you have to find the right balance of like, you know, throwbacks and callbacks to the original series and things that are new enough to keep contemporary audiences interested.
Yeah, it's a really big challenge. And
yeah,
one of the things that I wanted to bring up was the new Turtles movies.
Oh yeah, they're making a sequel to it.
Like, they kind of toe the line between like good and bad, like throughout their whole history.
Mm-hmm. Did you see the new one, by the way?
I actually did.
The Michael Bay one?
I watched maybe 2/3 of it. And it's, you know,
that's a little telling that you've only seen 2/3 of it. It's not like you to just not finish a movie.
I will say it's not the best movie out there. It's not great by any means. It's not even good. But I mean, you can tell that there was a valiant effort put in to the movie to at least try to recapture some of the old nostalgia and some of the old aspects of the Turtles.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think Turtles are a very unique franchise in that in every decade that they've existed, that's 4 decades so far, which is already saying a lot.
Are they that old, man?
They're from like the mid to early 80s.
Oh,
that's when the comic books first came out.
Right.
And every decade that they've been in, they've had success in. And so in the 80s, they had, you know, the comic books.
Yeah,
and
that makes a lot of sense.
The TV show, which I loved.
Yeah, the animated one?
Yeah, and then after that, in the early 90s and early mid-90s, they had all the movies, the live-action movies with the Jim Henson suits.
So good, though, yeah.
Okay, well, yeah, they're good when we think back on them. But, I mean, looking at them again,
I don't know.
They're okay.
Come on, man. Vanilla Ice doing the turtle rap.
The ninja rap.
Ninja rap.
Don't sing that. But, yeah, I guess for the time that time, it was good. And then the 2000s came around. They weren't as successful, but they did have like a good TV show and like an animated movie.
Right. They brought them into like that 3D animation and they
which
did a
was
movie.
Okay. Like I watched the movie. I don't remember anything about it.
There was that one that was pretty good. It was like TMNT Turtles Forever or whatever.
It was called TMNT.
Yeah, it was like, but what they did was that they combined like the new Turtles, like the one that they made the show around, with the older ones. I guess it was weird because it was kind of like a time travel thing where they or an alternate reality thing where they brought like the older iterations of the Turtles into the current
I've
world.
Never heard of this. Are you sure is it a movie?
It's a movie.
Are you sure?
I remember watching.
Are you sure you're not thinking of that episode of the Power Rangers where they meet these really ugly, nasty Ninja Turtles?
No.
You've seen that, right?
No, I haven't.
You should go look up a screenshot right now or something.
Oh God,
it's
check it out
frightening
eventually
because of the costumes that they have.
But no, it's not like that. But that was one of the movies that they did for the newer series. The 3D one.
I really
should check it out. It's pretty interesting, and it's not bad, actually.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'll consider it.
Yeah.
But anyway, they had some success through the 2000s, and then the 2010s come along, and they're making, you know, these really big blockbuster type movies.
Yep.
Which is it's kind of a change for them because they haven't had like these huge. They've had movies, but they weren't big spectacle type action movies. They were kind of like Ninja Turtles were kind of, they were meant for kids back then, kind of nerdy. But nowadays they're trying to make them look cool and it was flashy and everything.
And looking at the older live action movies too, I mean, especially the first one, it was pretty dark.
Yeah, the first one was extremely
especially like comparing it to the animated show at the time. Like the animated show was so colorful and it was so bright almost, and you look at the movie and it was
it was more along the lines of the comic books.
Yeah, like with lots of shadows, lots of darkness,
Like just the tone of it was very, very dark. And that's what parents were very upset about that, and that's why in the second movie you see they just do a complete 180.
Yeah.
And they're just in Goof Central all the time.
You don't like The Secret of the Ooze?
Oh, I love that movie.
Yeah.
The first one is the one that I don't watch that much.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Maybe it's because it was so dark. It didn't really, click with me when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And two, all the goofiness.
I mean, in the first one, you got all these, like, it's a whole thing about, like, runaway kids, that it's like a big epidemic in the city, all because of the Shredder,
Stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway, what I'm kind of getting around to is that they've had success in all 4 decades that they've been in, and they're kind of a testament to reinvention in that each time they've had the success, they've been different. The look of them changed every single decade.
Yeah, almost like it to fit the times, really.
Yeah, and they're the ones that I feel they're like a success story when it comes to that, because not a lot of franchises will take that leap like as gracefully as they do.
Yeah, sometimes it just doesn't work as well too.
Yeah, like Transformers, they had the misfortune of going straight from the 80s to the 2000s,
right?
And that's when there's this huge divide between them that you can't fill in. There's no gaps, or there's this huge gap that you can't fill in with anything.
Yeah,
you just go from this hard line blocky 80s cartoon to this huge spiky polygonal mess.
I mean, yeah, if you want to like not really counting like Beast Wars, which I know a lot of people were into a lot of people were into that show at the time.
Was not. It's
not really me, but
early 90s and like mid 90s animation was computer animation especially was frightening as hell.
Reboot.
What was that?
Did you ever watch that show, Reboot? I never saw that much, but a lot of people tell me it was like a good show at the time. It was one of the earlier like 3D kind of animated cartoons. I don't know. If people, if any of you guys got any like comments, or if you want to like link us to any episodes of that, you can do so, and we'll check it out for sure. But yeah, not a lot of those franchises have kind of like been able to make that jump that successfully. Like like you said, Transformers is one. I feel like G.I. Joe is another one.
Yeah,
it's definitely. Like you look at a lot of the movies that they've done for that in the last couple of years. I saw one of them when I was living in Taiwan a couple of years back, and it was just I watched it, and the biggest thing that hit me when I was watching that is this is not the G.I. Joe that like I know. This is not the franchise that I loved as a kid, because I loved G.I. Joes and Transformers and Ninja Turtles like when I was really young, like the late 80s, really early 90s, like. That's about as far back kind of as I can remember.
It was your first memory?
Well, not
with the Transformer.
I wouldn't say the first memory,
choking on the pieces.
But I do remember those times and like those franchises when I was a kid. Like I remember like even like Atari and everything, and I remember playing that as a kid. But I just look at those movies now and I'm just like, that is not what I loved about them as a kid. You know?
I think it is because like when there is that huge divide, like I mentioned, between when they were first popular and when they decide to bring it back, when there's such a great amount of time, it kind of loses its identity in the process, trying to bring it forward so many years.
Yeah.
Like the Turtles, they were continuous. They had something different every time, so that they had an identity through the 90s, through 2000s, and 2010s, whereas like with Transformers, and especially I think G.I. Joe, because making that huge leap, it turns it into something completely different. It's so generic, and like you have I think the extent of it is like the names, and because you can't really translate an 80s cartoon into a CGI fest without something not feeling quite right.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that's not even getting into the whole like socio-political issues of like
the hell you're talking about.
I don't know,
like
bringing
into this podcast,
like bringing like G.I. Joe into like a post 9/11 kind of like war on terror world. That's in the whole.
No, we're
debate.
not. No, it's not gonna go there.
But I could definitely see like how that jump from like going straight from the 80s to now would be such a huge what's the word?
Problem.
Yeah.
Do you think that's what happened to Star Wars?
Honestly, not really, because Star Wars was more or less continuous. Because you think,
but what about from or the Return of the Jedi to Phantom Menace? What happened there? Do you think that's the reason why it was so bad? Was it because of that gap?
It's a good question. I mean, honestly, I think too. Yeah, that was a big part of it. I feel like I would say we, because I also grew up with the original trilogy, and as a kid, when episode 1 came out, I was super excited for that movie. I was like, yes, I want to see more lightsaber battles. I want to see more like X-wings and everything, and all the star battles and all that. I want to see more of that stuff. And what we got instead was Jar Jar Binks and a bunch of politics.
Oh,
That was
every
what did
other
it.
scene was and like something they were sitting around the table talking about the Senate. And like, who the?
It's like I don't care about this stuff. Just go blast somebody. Just chop somebody up with the lightsabers.
But I mean, in their defense, they had like those slow moments in the original trilogy too. It wasn't all lightsaber battles in action.
They did, but I think a lot of it too was that like George Lucas, now that he had all this time and money, wanted to do a lot more world building than he did in the original trilogy, because there were a lot more scenes that are on the planets that give you a lot bigger scope of like what these places look like and who these characters are. And I feel like there's a much broader cast of characters if you look at the new trilogy compared to the old one.
Yeah, I think the new trilogy is kind of an anomaly within the Star Wars like universe, because they knew that the original or the prequels were bad. Like they understood that going into The Force Awakens.
Right.
And so they were handling it like with the utmost care. And a lot of franchises don't have that luxury of being the biggest in the world.
Yeah.
Some of them, they just have to go with whatever makes the most money, and that's what I mean, otherwise they won't be made.
Exactly. I think a lot of times like companies that are banking on this, they're paying for the rights to the license. And they just are like, okay, well, now that we own this, how can we get the most return on this, on what we bought it for? Whereas with Star Wars, it's like once Disney bought it, they bought a franchise that was already pretty big, but it's like George Lucas wasn't really doing all that much with it. They were big,
but they weren't at the time respected as much as they should have been.
Exactly. And also to look at it too, I mean, if you look at this idea of like of franchises carrying across through generations, we're completely omitting the fact that, between Return of the Jedi and Phantom Menace, there was a ton of written material. For example, there was that whole extended universe.
Yeah.
That
I think it was because that people were they had this dry spell of Star Wars, and they wanted more of it.
They wanted something to fill that gap. And the thing is, a lot of fans, they took it upon themselves to do so. And I haven't read a whole lot of the extended universe stuff, which is now non-canon according to Disney.
Oh, yeah, so
they
decided
it's not
real
canon.
And what's not.
But some of those, from what I understand, some of those like novels that take place afterwards and everything, they were super good. They were written by like really, really good like authors, like Timothy Zahn, who had like his whole like Thrawn trilogy and everything. And I mean, even in the games, you remember for the Nintendo 64, they had that game Shadows of the Empire.
Yeah, I remember that.
Which was supposed to be sort of like an in-between / like sequel. And that was apparently considered canon for the longest time, too. And even that was really good and expanded on what we already saw in the movies.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's also why Star Wars is much like Ninja Turtles. It's a little bit of an exception to that rule, because they did have the presence throughout all these years. They had something going, even if it didn't really feel like it, even if it felt like there was a huge gap between a lot of these projects. Even if there was a big gap between like episode 3, like Revenge of the Sith, and The Force Awakens. They've had like how many seasons worth of like the Clone Wars. In fact, I think there were 2 different television series.
Yeah, there were.
There was like the 2D and the 3D one. And then now they have Star Wars Rebels, which is like another animated like young adult show.
Yeah, and I think from this point on, they're trying to bridge the gap between the movies with as much stuff as possible.
Exactly.
Including releasing more movies.
Yeah. And then also much like the Turtles, it's like they were also backed with a lot of great video games.
Like
those Turtles games, like Turtles in Time and even the original arcade game, those were some of the best like side scroll beat 'em up games, even like up to now.
Yeah,
we can go back right now.
Are.
We should go back right now and play Turtles in Time on the cartridge.
I'll hook up my TV.
Yeah.
It's right here. So do you think the Nicktoons at this point in time is what is bridging the gap for them? Like these, how they were around in the 90s, and then they had this little break, between then and about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
When they started releasing a lot of their shows in syndication for that channel. And nowadays it seems like there's a bigger push to get more stuff with them in it. Like, do you think that gap had anything to do with, or do you think that gap will have anything to do with the amount of quality that will be in this movie?
I think that's a good question. I mean, it's something that
because the thing is, it's not like they've been making these old like 90s Nicktoons since then.
Exactly.
They did take a break.
That's true. I mean, it does remind me though of there were other shows I remember on Nickelodeon at the time that really kind of follow your point, and that was do you remember like the old Looney Tunes cartoons?
Do I remember the old Looney Tunes? What
yeah.
Are you asking? What are you asking me?
Because yeah, I mean, because those were like even older, older cartoons.
So okay, those ones are like from the 50s and 60s, right? They were created like, or maybe even the 40s, I think. Like
those were like way before our time. Those were like more like our parents' times, our grandparents.
Yeah, almost. And I think that's like they're the ones that are even more so than the Turtles. Like Turtles have lasted through 4 decades. These guys have lasted through like 7 or 8 almost.
Yeah, and it's like that's what I thought about when you asked that question, because I remember watching Looney Tunes on Nickelodeon as a kid, and I know those characters. I know Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck and all of the characters too, and I know that even kids nowadays are aware of those characters and know who they are because they've just been so prevalent over all of that time. Yeah. And despite the fact that I don't think they've made any like new like Looney Tunes cartoons.
They haven't made it since I think Looney Tunes Back in Action.
I don't even.
Is that the last one that they made?
When
the
was
one
that?
with Brendan Fraser in like 200003?
What?
Yeah.
I don't even.
It was
remember
after Space Jam.
After Space Jam. See,
I think.
Well, speaking of Space Jam, it was funny because like when I went on vacation last month, I remember on the flight on the way there was a little kid sitting in the aisle across from me, and she was just like on a laptop. I mean, it's a little kid, like probably 5 or 6 years old.
Yeah.
She was watching Space Jam.
Did you go up and watch it with her? Like, I love this part.
I swear, me and Jer, we were sitting there in our seats because Jer was sitting right behind me. We were both watching Space Jam on that kid's laptop. Why didn't you just?
I thought they had it on the plane. I'm like, why don't you guys watch it there?
No. It was on the laptop. She was watching it on the laptop, and like. It was funny because like I think the kid's mom like noticed we were watching because she tilted the laptop towards us so we could watch it too.
She knows.
So it was nice because it's like we're enjoying this film from like what was that, from the 90s too?
Yeah,
that was also from the 90s.
Yeah,
but yet there's this little 5-year-old. She's not even born, like she was only born like how many years ago, and like. She's watching Space Jam and watching Looney Tunes characters, and she'll grow up knowing these Looney Tunes characters.
And it's pretty amazing, like the timeless quality of these characters.
Yeah,
and that like they keep coming back. Like they weren't made for us, but we grew up on them.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
That's something that's really strange because I feel like that's going to be the same way. That's going to be the same thing for the Nicktoons. Yeah,
right. Because they never went away. They were being syndicated.
Yeah.
So it was still, because they made that channel too, the Nicktoons channel.
Yeah, I forget what year it was, but I want to say within the last like 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, but even if there was like a gap like between the time they kind of, because Nickelodeon never really stopped making new cartoons.
Yeah.
We just got tired of the ones that they would show. They weren't as great.
And then they just kind of pushed them back, but they never like what's the word for it? They never retconned it into being like they didn't exist.
Yeah, they never disavowed or disacknowledged them.
It's not like in those amusement parks they never featured any of those characters. Like you go to, I don't know, all these Paramount parks, and they still have like the characters in costumes.
Yeah,
they still exist outside of the cartoons and outside of television.
Right.
But I think that especially this movie here for the Nicktoons, it kind of solidifies their presence in the animation world, in that they want it to be accessible to the future generations, and it very well could be like the Warner Brothers cartoons.
Right. I think in a lot of ways we're hopeful for that too.
Yeah, because we love them. Like it's just one of those things that if you like it, you want to see the future generations also have that same thing.
Yeah. It's like going back to what I was saying about like, what I want to show my kids, like when I have.
We're going to be old and grumpy, and we're going to be like, oh, this is nothing compared to what I used to watch back in my day.
Yeah, but then it'll be like, well, what did you watch, Dad? And it's like, well, actually, we watched these shows. And it's like, oh, hey, I know that show because, they hopefully will grow up on it too.
One thing that I grew up watching was I Love Lucy.
Oh,
and that's from the 50s and 60s. But the thing is, my parents watched that on TV when they were my age at the time, maybe like 8 or 9.
You watched a lot of Nick at Night, didn't you?
I did. And it was on like right after whatever it was. I think it was Rugrats or something.
Yeah.
Like once 9 o'clock rolled around, I'm like, okay, yeah, let's watch more.
After
more
Roundhouse was over.
Was it Roundhouse?
Something like that.
I thought Roundhouse was on Snick.
Well, something like that. I don't remember like all that. And
Roundhouse
all those
actually
kind of
scared me. I won't go into any details, but you know that the guy with the movable, or was it the remote controlled armchair?
Oh yes, the one that spun around.
Yeah, and he like almost runs. There's some scenes that I picked out like while rewatching on YouTube that he almost runs some kids over with it. Because it's very much like a student production if you really look at it.
Mm-hmm.
And we won't look at it right now because we have other stuff to talk about.
We do.
What I'm saying is that, you know, I Love Lucy wasn't made for people that grew up in the 90s. It was originally made for people in the 50s and 60s, but that was something that I grew up on because my parents liked it and it was on TV. And who knows where these Nicktoons will end up in another 30 years. Like, it's pretty exciting to have the prospect of them still being around.
Oh yeah,
on TV
for sure. I'm like super hopeful that will be a thing, you know. And it's also that's also why it's like, it's almost like you really, really want this movie to do good. You really want like Jared Hess and whoever's like, and the people producing this movie to get it right.
Yeah, I really do.
Yeah, so it's like I think only like that'll be the big deciding factor of that. It's like, because you got to think, if this movie does not do well or if it's not well received,
people will not want to move forward with newer projects on any of the Nicktoons because they're like, well, it's clear that they don't want what we have, then what's the point of making more stuff?
That would be the biggest like shame of all, is if they just decide like, all right, nobody wants it, it's not nobody wants it, it's not profitable, forget it.
And they cancel all the channels and they just remove them from their universe.
We already waited so long for them to bring all these shows to DVD.
Yeah, I will just say I'll be cautiously optimistic about this. So either way, if it's good or bad, I can still claim innocence.
Yeah, exactly. I'm the same way. I think we'll reserve judgment for when it's in theaters and when we actually get to go see it. So
please make it good. That's all we ask for.
Please, Jared, please.
Or whoever ends up with it. I mean, they could always change it.
Nickelodeon, please don't fuck it up.
Do you remember Nickelodeon magazine commercials?
Barely.
Really? You don't remember the whole script behind it?
Not really.
You'll never know who will pop in, what will pop out, and it's so good you'll eat it all up.
God,
you don't remember that?
Just you saying those lines, it's like I feel like my brain trying to like find the file.
I rewatched the commercial like a couple months ago, and it's just like once it started playing, it was like clockwork. It stared running in the back of my head. It's like, I started reciting
you already
every line.
Knew it. Yeah.
It's just there. Maybe it's brainwashing or whatever you want to call it, but
it's like that scene from or it's like In and Out. It's like all those fuzzy memories. They're bringing them back up.
Did you say In and Out?
Inside Out. Sorry.
Oh, I thought you meant like the move. At first,
Inside
I thought you meant
Out. Oh
I thought you meant burgers, and then you're like,
we had In and Out last night for dinner.
I thought you meant burgers first, and then I thought, oh, he's referring to the Kevin Kline movie. That's really obscure.
I'm referring to last night when we went to go get In and Out. I didn't actually eat a burger because I was already full. But
then what'd you have? Just fries?
Yeah, I had fries. We should go get In and Out.
So what was this?
Right
what
now.
were you talking about? Inside Out again?
I don't know. It's like, that movie Inside Out, the Pixar one, where they look at like a lot of it explores memory. I mean, you saw it, right?
Yeah, I watched it.
Yeah, it's a lot of it explores the idea about like how memories work and stuff, and like your memories fade over time, but a lot of that stuff really like sometimes does feel like it just gets stored in a vault,
Yeah, somewhere, and then it like a switch flips, and then
you start singing that freaking song.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Happens every now and then with us, as Mr. Bucket. Like every now and then we'll just like start singing that Mr. Bucket song.
I don't sing like just Bucket. Spontaneously sing it. It will. What do you have? Mr. Bucket. So, are you okay? Trying to call me on the phone.
It's like, hey Joey, you want to come over and play a rousing game of Mr. Bucket?
Mr. Bucket.
Put some balls in the top.
Don't trigger me here, Mr. Fuck It. Fuck, it's so fun.
I think
we're done.
Good as place as any to
wind this down. Please,
yes.
Let's end this.
Let's bring it to our final round.
The final round.
So, what have you been doing this week, Joey? What have you been catching up on?
Oh, I've been catching up on The Witness.
The Witness? Oh yeah, you bought it after our talk.
After we talked about I did buy it because
How is it?
It's it's right now. Okay, right now it's really hard to say because I'm only about 5 hours in.
Only 5 hours.
Only 5 hours, and there's probably at least 40 or 50, maybe more, at least just from what I've been able to tell. But it's pretty good.
Oh, you're talking about hours, like 50 hours?
Yeah, 50. Wait, what do you think I was?
Well, I was like, yeah, I thought you meant like puzzles, and I was like, that doesn't sound like a whole lot.
45 puzzles? No.
Yeah, that's not a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Jeez.
I mean,
that's actually quite long.
It's
for
kind
a
of hard
game.
to judge right now, just because I know the world that they have in there is so big and so dense with puzzles that it's hard for me to tell like where I am in the game. Like, okay, when you save it, it'll tell you how many puzzles you finished. But that doesn't tell me exactly like the scale of the ones ahead of me.
Right.
Because there's a lot there I can tell that I'm going to be revisiting later on, because they have all these symbols that mean different things, and you won't know it until later, until you explore everywhere.
So it kind of gradually builds it up to a point where you learn things that you can use back at the older puzzles and everything, so you could revisit them.
And so, in the very beginning of the game, it's really, really linear. Like you walk up to a wall, you solve a puzzle, go to the next. It actually has literally has a line that brings you to the next one that lights up, and you can follow it to the next puzzle.
So kind of like Portal in a way.
Yeah, kind of. But it's like a ribbon that follows you and it connects to the next one. And so that's how you start off the game. You go from puzzle to puzzle, and it really does a good job easing you into it.
Nice.
And now it's not doing that, and
it just opened up for you.
Yeah, it opened up, and I'm just like, holy crap, this is what have I got myself into? So I'm gonna need you to buy it and then help me finish it.
Help you finish? Oh, fine. Yeah, okay.
Like it like I've always been a big person.
Yeah, you've always been pretty tall. That's for sure.
Shut up. I've always been big on puzzle games and adventure games. Like King's Quest were some of like my favorite childhood memories. Like because it was like me, my brother, my sister, and my dad. We all worked together and also against each other, trying to solve these puzzles. And so we would have different save files all the time. And especially my sister, she would turn the screen brightness all the way down when she was playing, and so that nobody else could figure out how to do it.
Oh, that's funny.
It was just like a competition, and then we found out that my dad was using a strategy guide.
So he cheated.
Yeah, he did. Well,
Mr. Yee, come on.
Like we found it one day, and we were like, "What is this?"
He was discovered. You discovered his treachery.
But I mean, those games, they really like, even though they're all single player, they have a community aspect to them.
Right.
Like on the outside, it's one of those water cooler type games where you go up to someone and you ask them like, how did you solve this one, or did you figure this one out, like how did you get past it?
That sounds more like what we talk about after we did our SATs. But
I want to think about.
Go on.
Do not
go on.
Do not connect this game with education, please. But yeah, it's, if you have the time and you have the patience, especially patience is a big thing in this game, because you're not going to walk into it, which is surprising for me because I have very little patience when it comes to games.
Yeah, we were just talking about that with like how you are with RPGs.
Yeah, I can't take the time to sit down and like micromanage these very specific things. But when it comes to puzzles, I really tackle it with grace, and I like taking my time with it.
Yeah. Well, it's also, I feel like
different.
it's more of an active engagement with it, rather than just having to read something and read
wait.
the story.
There's a lot in RPGs.
It's much more passive.
It's a lot of waiting and a lot of grinding, which is okay, but I'd rather be challenging myself at the same time.
Yeah, because the grinding is not necessarily adding to the story. It's just basically leveling your characters up so you can get farther into the story so you can see what else is going on.
Including more grinding.
Exactly. So, I mean, I love RPGs, but...
Was that what you're playing this week?
No, actually. So...
what is it? Hit me.
So okay, it was funny. I just started reading a new book recently about it's actually a history of coffee because I work in the coffee industry.
I drink a lot of coffee.
Exactly.
So we're pretty much the same, right?
Exactly, right? I provide you with coffee.
Oh, yes, thank you. Where is it? Oh, here it is.
Are you sure that's not mine?
Hold on, your mic is going to be all messed up. Okay, we're good.
But it's a book about detailing the history of coffee. Mainly It mainly talks about not only where the plant comes from, but also how it was brought to all these other countries, like how it came out of, it was brought out of Yemen and brought all over the world, like the Indo-Pacific colonies, like where the Dutch brought it there, and how the Spanish brought it over to like Brazil and Costa Rica and Guatemala and all these places. But the more interesting stuff is a lot of the socioeconomic stuff, where it talks about how coffee was basically helped to grow the economies of some of these countries, like Guatemala and Brazil in particular, and how they were basically the main cash crop of these countries. And not only that, but it also basically formed the like a power struggle between like the people there. Like in Brazil, for example, Brazil is one of the largest
coffee exporters.
Largest coffee exporters in the world. Like
I would have thought it was like somewhere in like Southeast Asia or
you would think so,
or Africa or something.
Yeah, but I mean, Brazil is like such a huge country, and they dedicate a large part of the country to growing coffee for export. They don't really consume it themselves that much, but a lot of what I was reading too is that when their industry first kind of came into being, it was mainly run by like slave owners and plantation owners.
Oh, so no. I don't like where this is going.
It was very reminiscent of the American South, like before the Civil War and everything. Mm-hmm. So it's very interesting to read. It's very interesting to read, and almost like to read the history behind a substance like coffee that we kind of take for granted these days. It's just
we do. It's just the black stuff, black liquid that keeps us energized throughout the day.
Keeps us energized and helps us go.
Most people don't care where it comes from. They just go to a gas station, pick it up, and go.
So for me, I'm very interested in learning where coffee comes from and how it got so big and so popular. And it's part of my job. It's part of what I should be learning. It's kind of funny because as I was reading this book, I went back to my desktop computer that I haven't touched in a while. I actually rebuilt a new one.
I remember that
recently, and I hopped on Steam and I remembered. Oh yeah, I have like Tropico 4.
Tropical 4?
Tropico.
You mean the guy with it's like a guy with like a big dictator hat.
Yes,
and beard?
The Generalissimo. So what Tropico is it's kind of in between SimCity and The Sims. It's like a city builder. Mm-hmm. But you can actually, you actually can also focus on the people, the individual people in your city and your pop, and you can click on them and they have a name, they have like likes and dislikes and jobs and whatever, and essentially you are playing as the dictator of your own Caribbean island.
I don't like this.
And so I was playing some of the campaign mode, and it's like you're given different objectives. Like, all right, you're on this particular island it's very rich with ore and stuff, and you have to like mine like iron for the Americans and stuff. But as you're playing and doing these objectives, other things happen. Like, oh, Russia now wants like the iron, and they'll offer you more money in exchange for helping them, and the U.S. won't like that, and blah blah blah. Okay. And it's actually really.
So where's the connection to coffee here?
Well,
oh god.
Well, because it's like a lot of what you do in Tropico, because you're like the dictator. You also can set, for example, like the wages of all the people. You can set like the quality of like their housing, the quality of their job, and everything. You could kind of
make them live in like a cardboard shack if you want.
Yeah, it's like you can just give them really crappy like living situations where they can only pay like $1 a month or something, and you can set a lot of things in it. Like you could set their wages, you could set their like the quality of their job, the quality of their housing, and everything, and I mean, you can give them good things too, like you could build schools and churches and clinics.
you would not like that to happen.
No,
right?
I'm far from it. I put a lot of those things in there, but you quickly realize building those things costs a lot of money, and how do you make money on a tiny little island like this? You gotta take a little bit more from the people who work hard to get you these things.
So where is this going?
So tying it into the coffee book, it's almost like, well, now I can kind of see how that system works and comes about. Don't judge me.
So
I'm
basically,
not a
what you
person.
were saying, is that you are.
I'm not a terrible person, I swear.
You are like a dictator.
I try to be a good dictator, okay?
You're a dictator apologist here.
I want to pay them living wages, but it's very hard to pay them living wages and make a profit.
These guys, they have all the slavery and poor working conditions. But I can kind of see where they're coming from here. It's
I
difficult.
pay my people very well.
They get $1 a month.
No. The people that work the more dangerous jobs get paid way more money.
$2 a month.
Well, it's like 6 or 7, But considering the Caribbean average is like 5, that's actually pretty good. They're pretty high.
They're living large down there.
So that it starts out in like the 1950s. Like that's when I think I don't know if every map starts out that way, but it usually starts in the 1950s. And as time goes by, the time goes forward. So you actually do have to worry about the politics too, which is actually a very different aspect of it that you don't get in, for example, SimCity. You have to worry about what people think of you. If people don't, if you force people to work really shitty jobs for really low pay, they'll actually go on strike. And then you have to deal with it. You either have to like give into their demands to give them what they want, like a living wage and stuff, or you could just hire your army to assassinate these people and tell them to shut up.
Sounds good.
Whatever way you want to play it, you could play it either way. And I mean, there's also like, for example, talking about politics, you have to get people to vote for you because, you have to give elections.
So, there you go. All you have to do is rig it.
Yeah.
Problem solved.
Which you can do in the game. So that's what I've been doing the last couple days.
In short, you've been a terrible person this last week.
No, I'm not terrible. Don't judge me.
Well, there you have it. Will Chang, the most terrible person in the world.
I'm just very interested in these sorts of things. That doesn't mean I want to be like a dictator.
Well, that's for everyone else to decide.
Yeah, we'll find out maybe next week.
Yeah. Well, if you have anything else to say?
No, I'm good.
People?
What about you?
I have nothing.
Nothing?
Absolutely
you don't want to say
nothing.
anything else to these lovely people?
No, I'm going to just be quiet for the next 5 seconds.
Okay. Well, then I'll take it upon myself to thank you all for listening in to myself and Joey here. And again, this is RetroActive, and we will talk to you good folks next week. I think that was over 5 seconds. You could talk now.
Okay. See you guys.
Later.